In this video, we are going to be learning how to cut and to sew this dress. I went ahead to style the back neckline my way and it came out nice. You can check out the details of this dress. It is neatly sewn. This dress was neatly finished to give the ready-made kind of vibe. Shout out to a sew friend, Chinenye, that sponsored this video. And if you got value at the end of this video, I'll really appreciate it if you can give me a thumbs up. Quick question, sew friends, who rocked this top better? The live model or the dummy? I'll be in the comment section to listen to your reviews and your questions. Quickly, let's just get straight into the video.
Yeah, I've gone ahead to draw my basic lines. This is the bust point, the under bust, the half length, the full length, and this is the bust span line. Divide your bust span measurement by 2 and you add 0.5 to the divided measurement. The neck depth, I used a 3-inch wide and a 3-inch deep. I went ahead to curve out my armhole. As you can see, I did not cut it out and I just used a dotted line for that because we are going to be altering the armhole later. I'm going to be marking out the waist dart. I'm going to mark 0.5 to the center like this. I'm going to mark it from the under bust down to the full length. I'm going to connect this straight up like this. I'll connect this to the bust point with a slant. I'm going to be taking 1.5 inches. I'm going to connect the dotted part together and connect it to the bust span with a slanted line.
Next, you measure your desired neck depth, and if you want the neck to be as deep as the picture, just measure your client and go down as you desire. But for this dress, I used 9 inches as the neck depth.
I'll measure out my desired neck width, which is 3.
If you would desire to get a narrow V as in the picture, kindly use your straight rule and slant it down like this. But I would prefer the neck to be a little bit wider, so I'm going to be making a curved out neckline like this with my free hand.
Alright, so if you notice, this V is not too slanted.
So if you prefer a narrow V, you use your straight rule.
So I'm going to be slanting it from this point to the under bust, following the style. So you can decide to use your straight rule to make the slant, or you can decide to make it a bit curvy like this.
I'll go ahead to connect the dotted line as shown.
I'm just going to measure 1 inch away from the under bust. It should not be more than 1 inch. I'm going to connect this to my V under bust measurement. My under bust measurement is 32 divided by 4 will give me 8. Then I will replace my dart intake at the side. My total dart intake is 2 inches. I'll just put it back here. So this is where my under bust measurement stops. So now I'm going to connect this so I will see my 1 inches line.
Connect your rule slanted as you can see and ensure it stops at the real under bust measurement as you can see. Then you can go ahead to connect it into your 1 inch mark like this.
We're going to be getting our shoulder dart and we'll be using the fullness to get our shoulder pleats. To do that, I'm going to connect my bust span line straight up like this. I'm going to measure 2 inches as my dart intake. I'm going to connect it from this point to my bust point with my straight rule. We need to close our shoulder dart and replace our dart intake here, else you'll be having a shortage of your shoulder measurement when you take out your dart. To close a dart, all you have to do is to pinch up the first line first, and then you make sure it meets the other line. So yeah, I've just closed it up. You can see that it's actually not fully balanced, but you can just ignore. Placing it together, you'll notice that these two lines, they do not meet. So where this line, the initial shoulder line, meet now, I'm going to place my rule there. I'm going to draw a straight line following my first shoulder line like this. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to remeasure my shoulder measurement and we are going to be making a new armhole curve. My shoulder measurement I'm using for this piece is 15 divided by 2 is what gave me 7.5. Now I'll go to my armhole depth and I'm going to remeasure that same 7.5. While you do this, ensure that the dart is closed. You can actually use a masking tape to hold it down there, or you can use your pins. So just make sure I start from here. Remember, this is my border line and all my measurement is starting after my border line. So I just marked out where my shoulder measurement is there. So from this top mark now, I'm going to connect it to this point. Now we have a new armhole depth, so we have to just go ahead to recurve our armhole. I have a video on how to curve your armhole on this channel. You can actually check it out for a better understanding on how I'm going to curve my armhole right now. So now this point becomes our new shoulder measurement. Slant the shoulder by 0.5. I know you'll be wondering that the armhole depth is getting smaller, but when you are joining, you are going to consider that all this here is not going to be necessary. So this is our new armhole curve and this is what it's looking like. And I'm going to be blending the curve here. So to blend this curve, just ensure that this part here is not pointed. Then you come out a bit here like this and ensure it stops at the underbust like that. So the next thing to do, I'm going to insert my bust measurement divided by 4 plus a sewing allowance of 1.5 inches. Going to the underbust, I'll insert my underbust measurement divided by 4 and my total dart intake, which is 2 inches. I'll put it back here before I'll go ahead to add my 1.5 inches for my sewing allowance. Notice that the underbust measurement exceeded the bust measurement. I'll be showing you how you blend this later on in the video. Going to the half length, I'll measure my waist measurement divided by 4, put back my dart intake, which is 2 inches, and I'm going to add my 1.5 for sewing allowance. From there, I'll go to the half length and I'm going to measure my lower abdomen measurement divided by 4. And I'm going to add my 2 inches for the dart intake and 1.5 inches for my sewing allowance. So from here, I'm going to connect this point to this point like this. This point to this point like this. Now, I'm not going to be connecting this point to this point with a zigzag like this. Instead, I'm just going to ensure that everything blends to meet it like this. When I'm shaping, I'll know what to do there. Ensure that this part is not pointed. I'm going to label the front as the front center FC, this as the front side FS. We are going to be cutting this out. I'll place this on fold before I cut out the shoulder slant. So yeah, when you cut it on fold, it's going to give you this arrow-like look at the top. That's why I really advise you place it on fold before you cut. Now I'm going to be following my new armhole curve and not the initial armhole curve. Take out my borderline. Stop at the underbust. Follow the dart straight up like this. I'll just follow it up. I'll just go ahead to shape out the sides. For this part, I'll take out the dart like this. I'll keep this part aside. We are going to take out the neckline. So place it on another pattern like this. I'm just going to cut exactly what I have here. I'll be explaining why I'm doing that later on. So here, I just went ahead to place it on that paper like I said, and I cut exactly what I have here on this piece. So you will not get confused with this side. So this is like the neckline. So I'm going to keep this piece aside for now, and we are going to be working on this piece. I will be explaining better what will happen to this part later on in the video. You keep this piece aside. Now we are going to be adding extra fullness to this, and to do that we are going to be adding some slashes and some spray effect to this angle. Divide the shoulder part by the number of slashes you intend to use. Then you go to the down part and divide it to the number of slashes you have marked at the shoulder point. You use your rule and you're going to connect these slashes together like this. We are going to be slashing through these lines like this. And while you slash, please ensure that you do not cut through. So from this point now, I'm going to bring another pattern and I'm going to be spraying these patterns to get extra fullness. And there's something else you should note while you spray this up. You should not make it too thick at the top here, else it will not spray easily. So just leave something tiny at that point for ease in spraying. The next thing I'm going to do, I'll be using my masking tape to hold it down here. Now you can decide how wide you want this. If you want the pleats underneath the bust to be very much, you can go ahead to spray this as much as you want. But if you do not want it to be too much, according to the dress we are making, the pleat at that point is not too much. So I'll not be spraying this fully like this, understand? After holding it down with my masking tape, I'll go ahead to reconfirm the extra fullness I added. I added 10 inches for the extra fullness. Initially it was 13 inches, but after adding my extra fullness, it became 23 inches. For where I measured initially that gave me 13, it was from this part to this part after I have closed my waist dart on the lower part, because this is the part I will be pleating the top part on. So I just measured from the side there to the corner there, and that was what gave me 13 before I went ahead to add the fullness of 10 inches to get 23. So I actually went ahead to use my masking tape to hold the top part here so that it will not mistakenly tear off. Before I close the spray effect, I'll simply go ahead to trim my pattern paper a bit. Notice that I am not trimming it exactly. This is just to make the pattern a bit flexible for you to close your pleats. For accuracy in trimming this out, you have to pleat back the spray effect, ensuring that the first spray effect meets the next spray effect, and while it is still on fold, you will take your scissors and you are going to trim it out following the shape of the closed pattern. And we are going to be repeating this for each of the sprays. I will just go ahead to trim out the neckline. For the neckline, cut exactly what you have there. Follow the shoulder the way it is, and you follow the armhole the way it is, and you cut out the sides. I'll just remove this first pattern as it's not really useful anymore. For places that have sharp corners like this, just slightly trim it to blend.
Just trim it so that the curve blends into each other at the edges that is sharp like you see me do here.
Now this is the shape that we'll be drafting on our chiffon. I'm going to be drafting the back part of this dress, and for the back part I actually just used the same length. I marked out my bust point so I'll know where I would insert my bust measurement to have length for my waist measurement and a full length for my lower waist measurement. And for the shoulder, I actually slanted the shoulder by 0.75 inch so that it can move a bit to the front. Now for the neckline, I'll be using 10 inches for the back neck depth. So I'm just going to measure from the top down here, and now this is my 10 inches. At my bust point line is my 10 inches.
So I'm just going to go ahead to insert my body measurement and my necessary sewing allowance like we did for the front. I will not be inserting my waist dart to this, so I will not be adding my dart intake as I measure this. For the neck width, I used a 3 inches wide, so I will just connect it with my straight rule downwards like this. Now we are going to be giving the back styling. I'll measure my underbust measurement and I'm going to add 1 inches to it so that the front and the back style line can meet. Then from that place I'll go ahead to place my roll and I'm going to slant it like we did for the front part.
I'll just cut.
I'll be using a chiffon for the sleeve and I measured half yard for the sleeve. Remember, a chiffon always comes in a by 60 length, so I went ahead to place it on fold like this to give me 2 sleeve. So after I have placed it on fold, I went ahead to place it on fold in this way so that I can cut the both sleeve at once. Now whatever your sleeve measurement is, you are going to add 5 inches to it so that it can drape and so that you can get some pleats at the shoulder. So I'm just going to go ahead to measure my actual sleeve measurement, which is 24. I'm going to be adding 5 inches for the drape and for the pleat. So after I have done that, I will just use my free hand and I'm going to make a curve like this as you see me do. Please, if you'd want a detailed tutorial on how to cut a basic sleeve or a pleated sleeve, please do let me know in the comment. So I'll just go ahead to cut this out and this would serve as the sleeve. The sewing aspect involves interesting sewing technique to give it a neat finishing.
Well, this is the wrong side of the dress and you can actually see that it was neatly finished. You can see the shoulder, is neatly finished down to the neck part. You can see the finishing of this clothes, that it is top notch. The back look and the finishing of the back as well, I actually ensured I finished it neatly.
Kindly hit the subscribe button, it is totally free so that you'll be the first person to be notified when I upload the sewing aspect of this dress. Thanks for watching.